Hey, folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. And this is the regular Bob and Jamie slot. But Jamie's brought backup today. We've got the coach, we've got Julian Mcgowan from Coach's Corner. And we've got in Jamie's corner, the cut man, maybe, Andy's Cavern. Andy, welcome, buddy.
How you doing,
so
Bob?
the only one of the Musketeers that we're missing is Jerry, but I think Jerry's tied up with scheduling. So the four of us can maybe we can excuse me, maybe we can entertain ourselves and folks watching with maybe a little discussion about Catterall and Eubank. Um, Andy, why don't I start with you? What did you think of Catterall and Eubank, and where does Catterall go from here?
I don't know why I keep watching them, to be honest, Bob. Um, every time I'm watching them, it's the same disappointment. I was actually pleased he got beat by Barboza the last time, and I thought Eubank might have taken a leaf out of Barboza's book and watched what he did to neutralise Catterall. I just think Catterall was he's just horrible to watch. I don't understand why there was so many folk turned up supporting him, cheering him. I couldn't understand that at all. And Eubank was getting booed, but and then the fights started. I didn't really understand what Eubank was trying to do. He was just waving his hands about. It was like Strictly Come Dancing. It became he just switching. It wasn't. It's all right if you're switching and actually hitting, but he wasn't throwing any substance. But and Julian pointed out to me that the distance he just wasn't close enough. His feet were too far away from Catterall. Personally, I thought he needed to double jab to get his way in there and then try just throw punches anywhere. If he's slippery in a Catterall, he's like an eel. But disappointing spectacle. And I don't know what happened at the end. What was the ref doing? It was like it's like the doctor was letting it go on. Catterall had a really bad cut, as you all know. Eubank had a cut as well, but the ref deemed Catterall's cut to be okay to continue, and then he went over, and I don't know what. It was a bit of confusion. Then that was the fight over, and it's all just a mess, an absolute mess, officiating mess, and the whole thing was a mess. The whole fight was just big disappointment. I'm sure
It
you
had
all
a
agree.
it had a very amateur type feel to it towards the end.
Mm.
It maybe we're now getting used to good quality productions and stuff, but at the end it seemed very disorganized, like you say, Andy, and it also seemed to me, and Julian, maybe you can jump in next, that Harlem Eubank, if he had a plan, he forgotten it, or he was trying to make up a plan on his ring walk. It seemed very confusing to me.
I mean, there's the old saying that you can only do what your opponent allows you to do. But there's one thing I really do not like watching with boxing is when you get a fighter. Okay, it was a very tricky assignment for Eubank. It just was. Harlem Eubank had a tricky assignment. He'd not boxed anywhere near that level before. We know what Jack Catterall does really well. It's documented. He's a very technically good fighter. He's almost like a fencer. But Eubank didn't at any point attempt to do the right things through that fight. He had a little bit more success, I think, in the fifth round. But yeah, as I was saying last night when we were chatting, watching the fight, his front foot, Alan Eubank's front foot was like literally 14 to 18 inches away from Catterall's front foot. And that's not how you approach against a southpaw. And before anybody says, oh, the southpaws are tricky, well, does that mean that southpaws never get beat? We don't have southpaws dominating absolutely every single weight division. And for some people, people wax lyrical about left-handed fighters just because they're left-handed, they can beat everybody. Well, clearly that's not the case. And I thought Harlem Eubank's approach was dreadful. It became apparent about literally 2 minutes into the first round. He didn't know how to approach it. It was pivoting. It was what's called rocking when you switch from your left foot to your right foot. It was rocking and pivoting, and he was clowning around with his hands, and at no point did he even attempt to put any educated pressure on Jack Catterall. And again, I know we talk about levels. Boxing's about levels. Before anybody scoffs at what I'm about to say, but if you want to see how to cut down on a southpaw, then you watch somebody like Julio Cesar Chavez when he fought Hector Camacho. brilliant educated feet, get up close, tuck in, really, really tuck in, and work hard and cut off the ring. And that's how you have to pin someone down like Jack Catterall. He's a fantastic talent, but Harlem Eubank for me was absolutely listless, hopeless, no idea whatsoever. I don't know if it was inexperience in the corner, the fact that he just doesn't have that ring IQ himself. I don't know. I just thought it was a poor fight, and as you know, I was probably in the minority when people talked about the fight. I was like, I'm not really feeling this fight at all. I thought Catterall would beat him easy, and that's exactly how I scored it after 6 rounds. I thought at least 5 of the 6 rounds I would give to Catterall, albeit landing 3 punches to nothing. It
Yeah.
wasn't a high scoring fight. It was terrible.
Do you think it's possible that maybe Eubank was overwhelmed by the occasion, stepping up those levels? It just seemed that he didn't know what to do.
He certainly didn't know what to do. I mean, the one thing that was really apparent was when you get an orthodox fighter against a master boxer like Catterall, who's a southpaw, you don't start fencing and waving with the left hand, trying to bat the left hand down. And now I think that's been a coaching instruction that has been given. That is not what you do against a southpaw. Just trying to bat that right hand lead hand down doesn't work. I think he mentioned something after about it was the game plan. I was starting to get to him, and that's what we expected. What is the game plan to give away the first 5 rounds in a 12-round fight? Is that the game plan? It's a ludicrous game plan. I don't think he had the level. I don't think he had the right approach. I don't think as well. The one thing what really frustrates me, and I don't want on this channel, I want us to talk about boxing and not talk about the commentary, because we all get a little bit tired of the commentary. But Adam Smith at one point did say after 2 rounds, this is not the Catterall against who we saw against Barbosa. This Catterall looks different tonight. It looks fantastic. And I just thought it looked exactly the same. And I thought you just tried to rebrand him as Jack Catterall 2.0. He doesn't look any different. Stop trying to con the public. He looks $1 million. Catterall looked technically very good, but that's all. I don't see those in main events, and I certainly wouldn't pay to watch those guys.
Well, I mean, before we hand over to Jamie there, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there seems to be a lot of gaslighting by commentary teams that would have viewers believe something that's different to what their own eyes are seeing them. I mean, I think that's not new, and it seems to be in the ascendancy. Jamie, let her rip, my friend. What did you reckon?
It was dog shite, wasn't it, really? And I like watching a technical sort of technical masterclass, but there just wasn't enough punches thrown. It could have been a technical masterclass had Harlem Eubank been throwing more punches, because Jack Catterall is a master at working off the back foot, and he's just a counter boxer, isn't he? He tries to, he draws all of his winning rounds from countering, but there just weren't enough punches thrown. And Harlem, really, he could have learnt off Barbosa, because Barbosa won that fight with activity. And just doing that the whole fight and, waving your arms around like you sight out the Three Musketeers. All right, I could maybe potentially understand what he was trying to do. Like, maybe he was confusing that with feinting. Feint, draw him into mistakes and, do your own sort of, not countering, because no one was throwing any punches, but at least draw him into a few errors, and then you can land your own work. But the thing is, if you're fencing and all that, you've got to be throwing, you've got to press. And, Jules put it perfectly there, talking about Julio Cesar Chavez. All right. Harlem Eubank is never going to be accused of being like a Mexican sort of come forward type fighter, but that would have been my plan, really. Make the fighter that's constantly boxing off the back foot and looking for counters. Okay, well, if you're active, he's going to have the opportunity to do that. But you've got to be active and overwhelm your opponent.
Yeah.
Sit all over him. Do a. I know I've been critical of, say, someone like Ricky Hatton, and again, I'm not accusing Harlem Eubank of being anything like Ricky Hatton, but the old Ricky Hatton who would just maul you and literally hold and just throw you out of your rhythm by just being disgusting to watch. That would have been
Yeah.
more appropriate last
Yeah.
night from Harlem Eubank.
Yeah,
Just
Ricky
maul
wouldn't.
him and take him out of his comfort zone. And yeah, I just thought it was pretty dire, to be honest.
Ricky wouldn't have made it pretty. But Ricky also didn't have much of a back foot. But yeah,
No.
that would have been the way to deal with him.
Well, that's what he would have needed. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, Ricky always struggled against southpaws, didn't he? But you know, we just didn't need cuteness last night. We needed action. And Harlem Eubank, I think. Now, I don't want to be disrespectful because obviously I've never been in a ring myself per se, but I genuinely believe I could have. I mean, we don't know what the game plan was, but I do believe I could have come up with a better game plan than that last night, to be honest with you.
The thing is, Jamie, what you're saying about Catterall, you know, he has one shot. He has a straight left hand, or he loops the left hand over. He's not a
Yeah.
southpaw of a, even though you think of a defensive genius like Pernell Whitaker. He had the left uppercut, the right hook, the right uppercut, the screw shots. He had every single punch in the book. Jack Catterall, touch, half a step back, feint, half a step back, throw the left hand over the top, grab or pin, back to ring center. It's like, this is not for me the greatest Rubik's Cube ever to try and solve. And he did nothing here. He didn't apply himself whatsoever. So you know where I've been today. I've been to sorry to just divert. I've been to an interclub today, MMA interclub. There was boxing, MMA, and K1. And I saw a lot of juniors and adults and people getting in there and having a go. These are kids and young adults. The son, one of them. They just get in there and they have a go. And some of them are outgunned. You know, some of them are getting picked off by more experienced fighters. But what they're not doing is just sitting back and clowning around. You get paid to fight. You are getting paid handsomely to fight. And I'm not dissing Jack Catterall. He does what he does effectively. I thought personally, I don't know how Harlem Eubank got paid for that, but absolutely disgraceful performance in my opinion. He didn't do a thing. He was posing and posing and posing. He didn't do a thing in that fight, and I don't want to see him again in a big fight. He's going to have to really go out there and earn something.
No, he's more like Chris Eubank Senior than Chris Eubank Jr. is, because that's exactly what Senior used to do. Not very, very effective. Just prance and dance around the ring, and you know, just hope something will come of it. I don't think, knowing sort of Jamie Moore as I have done in the past, I don't think Jamie would have been happy with that either, really.
No,
like
Jamie
what Catterall was doing.
Yeah, Jamie said afterwards it was a poor fight, didn't he? He says it wasn't a great fight.
No.
What I found troubling was, you know, Harlem Eubank seemed to think that he had done enough to win, and of course, like Jamie, I've not been in a ring boxing, so I'm sure that you lose track of what's happening. But it seemed that he was, you know, almost fury level delusion there for a moment. What did you think, Andy, about that?
I don't know why he thought he'd won. I think maybe he thought the ref was stopping it because of Catterall's eye. But I don't know. That's the only reason I can think that he thinks he's won. But then after 4 rounds, it's to go to the scorecards, isn't it? And an accidental headbutt clash. It's not like a punch caused the injury, is it? So it was just, the whole thing was just bizarre. But I just find Catterall so negative to watch. Eubank was terrible, but Catterall is just a negative fighter. There's nothing exciting about anything he does, I don't think. He's very effective, as Joel says, but he's just so negative. And as Joel says, all that money these guys are getting paid, they need to be throwing more leather than that, because Turkey Al Sheikh's already said, hasn't he? None of the guys will get invited over there.
No.
Tom and Jerry style fighting, as he calls it, isn't it? It's disappointing.
That's a really good point. Turkey Al Sheikh said on X, this wasn't Tom and Jerry, this was Jerry and Jerry. So if you're Jack Catterall's business manager, you're possibly thinking, my guy isn't going to go back to Riyadh anytime soon. That would be a concern, I would imagine, if you're managing a fighter.
I mean, they're a big high level fight like that, they're in the short window, aren't they? They need to be selling themselves. You don't sell yourself just prancing about the ring or just backing off and backing off and backing off. It's what's going on, eh? It's like a dance off as opposed to a fight, isn't it?
I mean,
Terrible.
I love the art of boxing, you know that, and I'm all for defensive fighters. Some of my favorite fighters I've ever watched are defensive fighters, the skilled artists. But you've got a guy, like I said earlier, who's landing 3 or 4 straight shots around, and that's it. That's winning the round.
It's awful, eh?
That's not defensive boxing. That's barely boxing. That's might sound like I'm hammering him. I mean, wow. I mean, he's a very talented fighter, but if you can find Harlem Eubank with that left cross every time you throw it, why are you throwing it 3 times, 4 times?
Yeah, you'd think that you'd be throwing it all the time, showing like, look how easy this is. Look how good I am. This guy's not on my level. I'm teaching him a lesson.
You land a specific shot, you build on it. You land a cross, you build on it. You put the right hook on the end of it. You land the cross, you put the right hook underneath. You build on it. It's just one punch at a time. It's fencing. I mean, we used to see a lot of that fencing type thing in the 90s and the noughties with the amateur boxing, didn't we? When it went through that stage, it really just became like fencing, and these guys weren't making great pros. I don't. It's just me. I don't want to see that. I love the art of boxing, but come on, there's a lot of people there who have come to see a little bit of entertainment. I'm not fully on the side of Turkey there, but there's some level of entertainment that we have to put on a minute, because it is fighting it ultimately, the fighters.
It's like Jack Carroll's got no desire to stamp his authority on the fight. He's just there to maybe try and steal rounds. If you go back and watch Beterbiev and Bivol, probably the most top level fight I've seen in recent times, skill wise. Oh, just incredible. And they guys, they didn't take their punches home with them, did they?
No.
Left the ring, didn't they? So,
well, did Jack Catterall, did Barboza beat him, or did he just lose that fight because he wasn't?
Yeah.
Well, Barboza just pressed a bit more than the average person presses when they fight Catterall, and that's what was shocking, because we've seen Harlem Eubank press, we've seen him go forward quite impressively at times, albeit on a lower level. But let's face it, Josh Taylor a couple of weeks ago, he loses to Echo Esserman. Echo Esserman showed what you could do if you just, I hate to use the phrase, but roll the dice. Do you know what I mean? You're in the casino, just roll the dice, and it could be your £1 million shot. But, he's just, I don't know. Whether it was a strategy thing, I don't know. But if it was a strategy thing, I know, and it sounds arrogant of me, I know that I've seen enough boxing, I've been around enough boxing to know I could have come up with a better strategy than last night.
There is a chance, final one from me, and I've not heard this said by anybody because I don't watch the aftermath. As you know, I switch off and then I stop watching. There's a chance he did a Johnny Nelson Carlos delay, and he might have froze actually, because he was clowning and laughing. But sometimes people laugh through fear, or because the just not got edge. Maybe there's just a chance that he just went and he just couldn't get to him after a couple of rounds, and it was a non-performance. There is a chance that that's what happened. Because if he thinks that was a great strategy and he was coming into that fight and he was looking good and he was winning fight, he needs a strong coach to sit him down and to really give him some home truths.
I thought he looked
Harrison-esque. Sorry, Andy.
I thought Eubank walking to the ring, he looked quite emotional, so maybe nerves were getting to him.
Maybe.
It's possible, eh?
Well, that's one of the things that I thought, that maybe that sort of, the atmosphere, the moment simply got to him. It's possible, because you would think that this was Eubank's opportunity to get a lot of eyes on him, and that he would, the last thought in his mind is, I'm going out on my shield if I have to. Like I'm just like recently we saw Justice Hooney. He lost a fight, but his stock rose dramatically. And, Eubank could have done the same. But, hey, what did you think about Eddie Hearn saying that he's going to try and maneuver Catterall now for a welterweight world title shot? Who wants to give that one a little bit of a rollover?
Well, he's just doing his job, and he's a promoter and he's promoting. Eddie Hearn, as much as he's not everyone's cup of tea, I think he's for pure promotion. He's the best in the world, I think, because he could work for the Prime Minister as a spin doctor. Fantastic. So he's just doing his job. I'm not going to be critical of him.
Sorry, I should rephrase. Sorry, Jamie, I should rephrase it. Because really what I'm looking for there is, what do we think of Catterall getting a welterweight title shot, and like how will that unfold? I know that Eddie Hearn has to promote him, but what's Catterall's chances really?
I don't think he'll be in any real danger, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think he can win a world title on that performance, because he moved sort of up a rung up the ladder against Barboza, who hasn't looked great himself. He lost he lost not on paper, but morally against that Irish lad, didn't he? The Irish fella. Can't remember his name. I do apologise. But that was supposed to represent a rung up the ladder that wasn't for a world title. So I can't see him winning it. But we know he'll come out probably without a scratch on him, because he is just safety first. So don't expect an entertaining spectacle. He'll go home safely to his wife and kids without a belt. That's my reading of the situation.
Who's going to buy tickets?
Oh yeah,
with me. I wouldn't be rushing out to see Catterall in a fight. That's definitely not.
Yeah, the thing is with Catterall, I think he had, in the unfortunate situation of the Josh Taylor situation that he was in, he had the moral outrage of the public behind him, and he really could have capitalised on that, because he was like the people's champion, wasn't he, for a second? Like
that was
someone said,
fight. That was an awful fight as well, wasn't it, to watch?
Yeah, it was. But he won that first fight, didn't he? And I just think, like you, I think he's a bit of a pacifist, like you said.
I might be controversial, but I actually thought Taylor just beat him in the second match. So I would say Taylor lost the first fight in my eyes, but I thought Taylor just edged it in the second fight. And back to Bob's point of commentary, in between each round, it was all pro Catterall, the whole production. In between each round, all the highlights were Catterall's highlights. There was none of Taylor's work shown in the highlights between rounds. I remember, I was actually speaking to him while watching that, and I was frustrated just with the way it was going. I can understand why most probably pure boxers like watching with the volume down.
I think they can really influence you, can't they? And from the highlights that I saw, I managed to find like the full fight, and Adam Smith actually turned around and he called Jack Catterall a former world champion. So I can't put any stock in anything Adam Smith says. He's an atrocious commentator. Might be a nice guy, but he's crap.
What I've noticed is that the house fighter is always getting the benefit from the commentating crew, and it seems to me that all these guys are kind of tight with Eddie Hearn. It's almost like jobs for the boys. I'm not sensing an independent journalistic approach from any of the commentators. It's the house fighter, the house fighter, the house fighter. But
here's a question for you guys. Do you think the referee had a duty to get them both in the ring centre and say, "Come on, make a fight of this"?
Yes,
it was just shot. I've seen refs do that in the past, and didn't see it. What's his name? Bob somebody was the ref. I can't remember his name.
Referees certainly used to do that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah.
An old style referee like Sid Nathan wouldn't have stood for that. They got them together ring centre, and he just said,
"Bang their heads together."
You paid money to watch this. Get a grip. Come on. And I think you're allowed to do that as a referee. It's within the rules. You got.
Didn't they do that in amateur boxing, Jules, as well? Like, you could be penalised for it if you're not.
Yeah, and
fighting.
I've seen people have been thrown out, disqualified for non-effort. That has been something that's happened before. I might have seen it once in all my years, but I've definitely heard of it more than once. Rightly so.
Bob Williams.
Place. If you don't want to be in the ring, don't be in the ring. I'm not saying Harlem Eubanks was that bad, but there was an inevitability about the head clash because it was so scrappy, it was so goddamn awful there was just an inevitability, I thought, about that, and it was a nasty clash.
Well, at
Yeah,
one
it
point,
was.
there was like a hip throw. People were almost like rolling on the ground. It was so bad.
Yeah, at least I did like the fact that I think it was Sky, one of the Sky cheerleaders says something about, do we run it again? And then when you actually spoke to quite a few people afterwards, including Eddie, and they're like, no, I think we're going to go for a world title. Nobody wants to see that again. Nobody.
Yeah, no, it
Definitely
was.
not.
There was one other thing that I saw. Catterall at some point before he was told to go to by the referee, he did what Tank did. He went back to his corner. I meant to watch it again, but I've been busy. But he went back to his corner without being told by the referee to do so. And I thought, again, what's going on here? To Andy's point, it was all amateurish.
It certainly was. But the one thing I will say is there was a couple of really good fights on the undercard.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There were some cracking fights. So it's for a viewer's point of view. Look, if I were a Jack Catterall fan, he got the win. But from a viewer's point of view, at least we did get to see some really good 10-rounders on the undercard, and that made me at least give me a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
And we had that exciting young heavyweight, 18 years old, Leo Atang. He might be somebody to watch down the road. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, he's a bit wild for my liking. I don't want to be a bit of a bore. But I'm on the Moses train. Moses is a lot more compact and a lot more sort of professional in his approach. I know he wasn't fighting any great shakes, but yeah, I just think he was a bit wild. So reserving judgment there, to be honest.
I agree, but he's 18. He's not Moses. Moses is maybe special. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I love Moses.
I know you do.
He does have pedigree. He has a very good amateur pedigree. Does that young heavyweight? So
yeah,
let's see him in 3 years' time, 4 years' time. Then we'll make a view on him. But he certainly had a good.
He's only 18.
Ability. Yeah, he had good ability.
Yeah.
Good-looking boy as well, so it always helps the TV, doesn't it?
Sure. He's telegenic. He seems to be well-spoken. He's looking like, dare I say, AJ 2.0, or is that? Would that be?
That's far too sensationalist. That AJ was don't get me. Yeah, he won his fight by stoppage, but AJ looked a lot more clean. To me, I just think he was flailing a little bit, but I'm quite critical.
What I will say is, personally, I'm really liking these fighters turning over young. We're seeing all these fighters, that certainly anyone who's got any kind of pedigree as an amateur, they're hanging on for the GB money, for the podium squad, for the international tournaments, the sponsorship, everything else, get down to Sheffield. I'm liking now the Moses sort of trend that is established, which is, you know what? Nothing's guaranteed. Am I going to hang around as an amateur for the next 6, 7, 8 years to get robbed in the Olympics? No. Well, I'm going to learn my trade in the professional ranks. So I personally am liking that, because the one thing we will say about him, whether he's any good or not, him and Moses, is if they are good, we get to have them for about 12, 13, 14 years, as opposed to these great fighters we're seeing coming through too late, where we only get 4 to 5 years of them. So
Fraser, like maybe Fraser Clark spent too long in the amateurs. Maybe.
Exactly. So I'm fine with it. I'll be interested to watch his journey.
Guys, we're running out of time, but I do notice that next weekend we've got Hamza Shiraz back in action. Is it next weekend? I think it is.
I think it is.
Yeah. Same card as Shakur Stevenson. I know you guys are all, Brits and like to cheer for Hamza. Maybe. How do you think Hamza's going to do?
No,
I picked the wrong. I picked the wrong selection of Brits.
I'm sorry to be miserable, and I'm sorry to jump in first. I'm not a fan of Hamza Shiraz since he got done over since Bradley Skeet beat him, and again the house fight. And it's not Hamza's fault, but the house fighter got favouritism, and that's just soured me towards him. I think he's very, and I'm not meaning to throw shade on, as the children would say, Bob, throw shade on Joe Gallagher, but he's just he's a Joe Gallagher sort of fighter. Do you know what I mean? I'll put the hands up and I'll wilt if any real pressure's applied to me. And anyone who's got a sort of semblance of decent boxing skill can put a combination together and move laterally. I'm pony. So yeah, Shiraz. I'm not a fan of Shiraz. I think he's very, very overrated.
Andy?
I think he's got the attributes to do well because he's tall, long. But that fight he had in Saudi against who was
Adames?
Adames. He was too tentative, wasn't he? He was way too tentative. A bit like Jack Catterall, no interest in stamping his authority in the fight. That fight was there for him to win, wasn't it? I think, but I think for me the jury's out on him until he has a big performance against somebody decent.
Well, he's going to be up against somebody decent, and at 168. Julian, last word for you, man.
Okay, very quickly. I like him. I think he's got good structure. He can look amazing. He can look pretty average. But I think what he does is it's what I call the modern day hype and the modern day build up, because you just mentioned the Bradley Skeet fight, Jamie, and obviously the fact that his last fight, which he was very fortunate in to get the draw. In old money, he would have just been viewed as a young fighter having international fights, learning his trade. And when that happens, we make allowances to say, well, he's just learning. He's young. He's coming up. He's young. He's developing. He's not the finished article yet. But because we thrust fighters so quickly now, and people start saying he's like the British version of Thomas Hearns, and you'll start labeling people like that. What happens then is you get the microscope out and you're looking for any weakness whatsoever to pull him down. That's what British do. It's just what we do is we don't like fighters to develop. You know, we talk about development in the gym and on the undercards and away from the spotlight. We get anybody who looks to have any potential, future star, we thrust them onto main events, we match them too hard, and then we invariably set them up to fail. And then when they do fail, we say it wasn't any good anyway.
Yeah,
maybe it was rushed, maybe it wasn't ready.
It's almost like the Brits don't really like a winner. I often think of Henry Cooper and Joe Bugner. You know, the worst thing that Bugner ever did was to win. So, hey.
I mean, we just proved that point with Jack Catterall, haven't we? Because the guy doesn't take any punches and he's a
Actually,
winner.
yeah.
We just ripped the hell out of him. So
yeah.
maybe
So we're as guilty as everybody else. Guys, I really appreciate you throwing your schedules together to join the regular session with Jamie. Great to have four of us. Andy, good to see you. And you're not drinking vodka tonight. Are those optics empty now? Or you're on a health kick?
They're still full. I'm just not been drinking, so
well,
I'm off it. As you would say in Scotland, I'm off it.
You're off it. Okay.
For the time being.
Well, guys, thank you very much. Everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this four-way chat. Please like, please share, please subscribe, and please leave comments in the comment section. Guys, it's been a slice. Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.
Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.